January 3rd, 1945. The Hurtgen Forest. You can't feel your toes. You're not even sure you have them anymore. The air smells of wet pine, diesel exhaust, and the sharp metallic tang of fear. Every crack of a frozen branch sounds like a rifle bolt. You're huddled in a hole that's more ice than mud, clutching a K-ration bar that's frozen so solid you could use it as a weapon. You watch a new replacement, a kid who was probably in a high school classroom 6 months ago, stare at his own trembling hands, his eyes wide and vacant. This isn't war. This is a test of human endurance, and you feel yourself failing. Welcome to the invisible front, where every statistic tells a story and every cargo manifest holds a whisper from a world at war. Ever wonder what it truly felt like to be a cog in a war machine so vast it worried not just about your bullets, but about your happiness? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you find the journey we're about to take is a valuable one. Invite viewers to share where they are watching from and which invisible piece of technology or logistics fascinates them the most. Now let's pull back the curtain and uncover the story of the systems that win wars. You are seeing right here in the snow and the mud the single greatest threat to the Allied advance. It isn't a new German tank. It isn't the Nebelwerfer rockets that scream overhead, earning them the name Screaming Mimes. It is the invisible creeping rot of profound, soul-crushing despair. The official term is combat fatigue. You just call it the shakes. You see men who have endured the unendurable simply sit down in the snow, unable to move, their psychological circuit breakers finally blown. The generals, men like Eisenhower and Marshall, are seeing this in the after-action reports. They are reading the field psychiatrist's analyses. They understand a terrifying truth about their citizen army. It doesn't run on ideological fanaticism, and it doesn't run on fear of the state. It runs on belief. Belief that the job is worth doing, and belief that the system, the vast, powerful, abstract home, actually cares that you are here, doing it. And in the winter of 1944, that belief is freezing to death. This is the strategic problem. How do you resupply a man's will? How do you ship hope in a standard issue crate? The German war machine, built on a brittle foundation of supposed racial superiority, believes you are soft. They believe you are a decadent, comfortable capitalist, and that when faced with true primal hardship, you will shatter. And here in the Hurtgen, you have to wonder if they're right. This is where the story veers from the predictable. The solution doesn't come from a brilliant tactician drawing arrows on a map. It comes from the quartermaster corps, from the logisticians, the bean counters. They look at the data, the rising rates of psychological discharge, the dip in company-level morale, the sheer grinding misery, and they make a calculation that seems, on its face, completely insane. They decide that the ultimate expression of American industrial might, the one thing that can prove to you in your foxhole and to the enemy watching you that your system is indestructibly superior, is not a bigger bomb. It's ice cream. You heard that right. A frivolous, melting peacetime luxury. It is, by any sane measure, the single most impractical item one could possibly try to ship into a war zone. It requires specialized refrigerated manufacturing, delicate supply chains, and constant power. It provides almost zero nutritional value for combat. Its inclusion in the military's logistical plans is, in a word, absurd. And that is precisely why it becomes a weapon. It is a flex, a $20 million psychological operation disguised as a dessert. The Army isn't just trying to give you a taste of home, it's trying to prove that it can. It is a declaration that the American industrial system is so powerful, so overwhelmingly dominant, that it can project its softest, most luxurious comforts into the very heart of hell. They are about to weaponize nostalgia. That declaration, however, is a blank check that the Quartermaster Corps now has to cash. You, as a logistician in the rear echelon, are now facing a problem that no military in human history has ever seriously attempted to solve. It's one thing to move bullets. They don't melt. It's another to move tanks. They can usually move themselves. You are being asked to manage a cold chain, a complex, fragile, temperature-sensitive supply line that begins in a dairy in Wisconsin and is intended to end in a muddy foxhole in Belgium. The sheer magnificent audacity of it makes you smile. This is the birth of morale logistics as a formal military doctrine. It starts with the Quartermaster General Edmund B. Gregory and his team, who understand that the American way of life is the very thing you're supposed to be fighting for. So, why should you be forced to forget what it tastes like? The mandate comes down. The soldier's morale is now a tangible, measurable asset, as vital as a gallon of gasoline or a box of .30 caliber ammunition. The system you help build is staggering. It begins with procurement. You're not just buying milk, you're buying so much dehydrated ice cream mix that you are cornering the national market. Contracts are signed for hundreds of tons of sugar, cocoa, and vanilla extract. You're also commissioning the creation of entirely new pieces of equipment. You need a machine that can make ice cream in a war zone. It has to be rugged, simple to operate by men who are decidedly not chefs, and able to run on a standard gasoline-powered generator. So the 10-gallon freezer gasoline engine becomes a standard line item in your quartermaster catalog. It's a heavy steel-clad beast that arrives in an olive-drab crate, and it's just as vital as a field kitchen, but that's just one piece. The real magic is the post-exchange, the PX. You watch as this humble institution, once a simple on-base store for selling soap and magazines, transforms into a global distribution network for American culture. It's the PX that delivers the rest of home. It's the Lucky Strike and Chesterfield cigarettes. It's the Wrigley's chewing gum. It's the paperback Armed Services editions of books, The Great Gatsby or A Gritty Western, printed to fit perfectly in your fatigue pocket. It's the fresh-baked, or, more likely, fried donuts, churned out by Red Cross Donut Dolly volunteers using portable machines that fill the air with the smell of home. And it is, above all, ice cream. You see the system in action. A C-47 transport plane, having just delivered a payload of desperately needed medical plasma to a forward airbase, doesn't fly back empty. It's loaded with containers of freshly frozen ice cream from a rear area depot. It lands and a Jeep distributor takes over, running the containers in insulated bags to the company command post. A sergeant, the same one who handed you your ammo belt that morning, now hands you a paper cup of vanilla. You taste it. It's cold. It's sweet. And for 10 minutes, the war disappears. This isn't an accident. It's not a luxury. It is a calculated billion-dollar injection of normalcy. The military is weaponizing the mundane. While the German soldier is being fed a thin rye bread and a synthetic M-block chocolate laced with amphetamines, you are being served a dessert. The enemy's logisticians are focused on survival. Your logisticians are focused on your happiness. And as this system spools up, another, even more recognizable symbol of home is about to follow the same path, demanded by the highest-ranking general in the entire theater. The general's name is Dwight D. Eisenhower, and the symbol he demands is not a new rifle, but a curved glass bottle. On June 29, 1943, you see the teletype message come through from his headquarters in North Africa. It is a request so unusual it has to be read twice to be believed. It is a direct order to the Coca-Cola Company. The Supreme Allied Commander wants to ensure that Coca-Cola will be available to our troops as close to the front lines as possible. He doesn't ask for a soft drink. He asks for Coke. He doesn't stop there. He requests 10 complete bottling plants and explicitly states that the personnel to run them should be shipped overseas immediately. You have to smile. This is the ultimate good enough industrial model in reverse. This isn't about finding a generic substitute. This is about delivering a specific trademarked, copyrighted brand experience. It is a logistical nightmare. And it is, you realize, absolutely brilliant. Why? Because in the 1940s, Coca-Cola is America. It's the pause that refreshes at the local drugstore. It's the sign at the baseball game. It is the liquid embodiment of the very home you are fighting to protect. The company's president, Robert Woodruff, had declared that any American in uniform should be able to get a Coke for 5 cents anywhere in the world for the duration of the war. It's a masterful piece of patriotic marketing, but Eisenhower sees the strategic value. It's a morale essential. The problem is, you can't just ship millions of heavy, breakable glass bottles across an Atlantic Ocean plagued by U-boats. The shipping tonnage is too valuable. So the system you help implement is one of pure industrial genius. You don't ship bottles, you ship syrup. In large, anonymous olive drab drums, the precious secret formula syrup is loaded onto cargo ships, designated as vital war material right alongside aircraft parts and penicillin. But syrup is useless without carbonated water and a bottle to put it in. This is where the technical officers come in. You watch them arrive. They are Coca-Cola factory managers, chemists, and engineers from places like Atlanta and Indianapolis. They've been given military uniforms, officers' pay, and an equivalent rank, often lieutenant colonel, so that if they are captured, they will be treated as officers, not spies. They are, in essence, a commando unit of corporate America. Their job is to follow the invasion front, and with the sound of artillery still rumbling in the distance, they are to build pop-up bottling plants. You see it happen in Algiers, then in Italy, and most famously, just weeks after D-Day, in France. A technical officer arrives in a captured town. He requisitions a bombed-out warehouse or perhaps an abandoned French winery. He scavenges. He pulls a water pump from a destroyed fire truck, a motor from a captured German generator, a conveyor belt from a derelict farm. His team, often a mix of GIs from engineering battalions and local French civilians, patches the roof, cleans the vats, and assembles the bottling line. The precious syrup is trucked in, carbon dioxide is sourced, and within days you hear the magic sound, the clink, clink, clink of glass bottles moving down an assembly line. The first batch is always reserved for the field hospitals. The second is for the frontline combat troops. When you, as a soldier, are handed that bottle, cold, sweating condensation, and fizzing with that familiar taste, it is a profound psychological event. It is not a luxury. It is a statement. It is a message delivered directly from the industrial heart of America that says, we are so powerful, we are so rich, and we are so completely, utterly certain of our victory that we can stop in the middle of this war to make you a goddamn soft drink, because we care. It is the taste of home, and it is the taste of inevitable, unassailable, industrial victory. But what about the places the PX trucks can't go? What about the men who are operating so far beyond the front line that they're practically in another world? You are one of them. You're a ball turret gunner in a B-17 Flying Fortress, part of the 8th Air Force. Your office is a freezing, cramped plastic bubble hanging from the belly of a plane 25,000 feet above the German homeland. You know intimately what cold is. It's not the damp, muddy cold of the infantryman in the forest. It is the dry, brutal, alien cold of the near stratosphere. It's 40 degrees below zero. It's so cold that your 50 caliber machine guns can freeze solid, and your oxygen mask, the very thing keeping you alive, feels like it's welding itself to your face. The official morale system, the Coca-Cola plants and the PX ice cream depots, are 1,000 miles and a different lifetime away. You will be lucky to survive the next 30 minutes, let alone get a dessert. And yet, it is here, in the most hostile environment imaginable, that you see American ingenuity at its most absurd and most brilliant. You're not just a soldier. You're a tinkerer, a hot rodder from California, a farm boy from Iowa. You're used to fixing things with baling wire and grit, and you realize, perhaps with a sudden giddy laugh, that you are sitting inside the most expensive, most powerful ice cream maker ever built. You have all the ingredients. Back at the mess hall on your base in England, you've managed to acquire a large can of the standard issue powdered ice cream mix. You've scrounged some canned milk and extra sugar. You have an empty, clean 5-gallon hydraulic fluid can, or maybe a large sealed ammunition box. Before you take off, you see the crew chief and the waist gunner meticulously mixing the ingredients in the can. They hammer the lid down tight. They don't just toss it in the plane. They secure it with a strap, right in the slipstream by the open waist gun window or in the unpressurized, unheated fuselage. Then you take off. You climb. For hours you fly into the frozen heart of the Reich. And as you do, the war itself becomes your machine. The constant bone-jarring vibration of the 4 Wright Cyclone engines provides the agitation. The 40-degree air blasting past the thin aluminum skin of your fortress provides the flash freezing. You are in the middle of the most terrifying experience of your life. Flak shells are bursting around you, painting the sky with black, oily puffs of smoke. You can see the contrails of German fighters peeling off to attack. And the whole time, in the back of the plane, a chemical miracle is happening. You drop your bombs. You survive the turn. You are heading home, your nerves shot, your hands shaking, your body numb with cold and relief. You land, the wheels kissing the runway. And the first thing the crew does, before they even head to debrief, is grab that can. You pry open the lid. And inside you find a grainy, overly sweet, half-frozen slush. It is, without question, the most delicious thing you have ever tasted. It's flak-frozen ice cream. It's an act of profound, creative defiance. It's a way of proving that even here, in the kingdom of death, you can carve out a tiny piece of home. You have taken the very worst parts of your job, the altitude, the cold, the vibration, and you have forced them to make you a treat. This is the spirit that the logisticians are trying to support. But the Army Air Corps doesn't have a monopoly on ingenuity. The Navy, operating in the vast, sweltering heat of the Pacific, is facing the exact same morale problem, and their solution will be, if anything, even more spectacular. You're floating. You're not in the frozen forests of Europe. You're in the Pacific. And the enemy isn't the cold, it's the heat. A suffocating, wet, 110-degree blanket of heat that never, ever lifts. You are a sailor on a Fletcher-class destroyer or a Marine who just clawed your way onto a black sand beach. Your world has been reduced to salt water, sweat, sun-scorched steel, and the constant buzzing threat of an enemy who seems to prefer death to surrender. The isolation out here is a different beast. It's not the misery of a few hundred yards of no man's land. It's the crushing, existential loneliness of 1,000,000 square miles of empty ocean. How does the quartermaster's mandate find you here? How does a cold chain survive the equator? You can't just run a jeep up to the line. The line is an amphibious landing craft or a cruiser 500 miles from the nearest friendly port. The solution, you realize, is just as audacious as the problem. If the men can't get to the ice cream parlor must sail to the men. And so you witness the birth of the floating ice cream factory. This isn't an ad hoc, flak-frozen experiment. This is a full-scale industrial mobilization. You smile at the sheer, beautiful American overkill of it. It starts with the Navy's construction battalions, the Seabees. Their motto is, "Can do." They see the problem, and they don't find a good enough solution. They find the most effective one. You see it being towed into the lagoon at Ulithi Atoll, a massive captured harbor that has become the Navy's forward staging area. It is a concrete barge, a big, ugly, utilitarian block of floating cement. It has no engine, it has no guns, and it is, at this moment, the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. Inside this concrete hull is a self-contained 24/7 manufacturing plant. It has massive diesel generators chugging away, providing the one thing that is more precious than gold out here: power. That power runs a water desalination and purification system, turning the Pacific's salt water into fresh drinkable water. And that water is fed into a series of gleaming, industrial-sized mixing vats and 10-gallon freezers. This single barge can churn out over 1,500 gallons of ice cream every single day. It's a fixed, strong point of morale. The destroyers, cruisers, and carriers of the fleet, rotating back from the front line for fuel and ammunition, line up to get their ammo of a different sort. You watch sailors lower nets and cargo slings, and instead of hoisting 5-inch shells, they are carefully lifting wooden barrels and metal tins packed with gallons of chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. But the Navy doesn't stop there. The barges are for the anchorages. What about the fleets at sea? You are on replenishment duty, and you see a ship on the horizon. It's a B-class refrigerated stores ship, a reefer. It is quite literally a floating cold storage warehouse. Its holds, which could carry enough food to feed a small city, are kept at a constant 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It has sailed unescorted from San Francisco, loaded with tons of frozen beef, fresh eggs, butter, and in its most secure, most treasured locker, thousands upon thousands of gallons of pre-packaged, factory-made ice cream. You are at sea, in the middle of a war, and you are eating ice cream from a brand-name dairy in your home state. This isn't a treat. This is a miracle, and it's a message. While your Japanese counterpart is starving, reduced to eating roots, and, in desperate cases, his own comrades, you are part of a system that can project a dessert across 5,000 miles of hostile ocean. The logistical power that this implies is terrifying, and you are not the only one who is noticing. You are not an American soldier. You are a German Lancer in the 116th Panzer Division, captured near the Falaise Pocket. Or you are a Japanese naval infantryman who has just surrendered on Guam. Your entire reality has been forged in an ideology of deprivation and superiority. You are a warrior. You have been taught to endure hardship. You eat when the state allows. You live for the Volk, for the Emperor. Your enemy, the American, is a soft, decadent half-breed, corrupted by capitalism and jazz. He is not a true soldier. He cannot endure. He will break. This is the central, unshakable truth of your world. Then you are captured. You are marched to a processing area, and the first thing that happens is confusion. You are shoved into a tent, stripped, and sprayed with a chemical delouser. You are given a hot shower. You are handed a bar of soap. Real, lye-based soap, not the gritty ersatz sawdust you've been using for a year. You are handed a new set of clean, if ill-fitting, fatigues, and then you are fed. You are given a tray. On it is a piece of bread, soft, white, and completely useless from a nutritional standpoint. Not the dense, whole-grain Kriegsbrot you're used to. You are given beef, real beef, not horse meat. You are given a cup of coffee so black and strong it makes your hands tremble, and you are offered a spoonful of real sugar to put in it. This is the moment. This is the different kind of shell shock. It's not the thunder of an 88mm shell. It's the quiet, horrifying realization that everything you have been told is a lie. You see a young American guard, a boy of 19, open a pack of cigarettes for himself. He takes one, then casually throws the entire rest of the pack to you and your fellow prisoners. He throws it away like it is trash, like it has no value. You, who have been hoarding cigarette butts and rolling scraps of tea leaves in newspaper for 6 months, watch this gesture with a sense of awe that borders on terror. This is not a display of weakness. This is a display of power so total, so vast, that it is beyond your comprehension. This is ideological collapse. High-ranking officials back in Berlin, Men like Albert Speer have been seeing this in their own industrial reports for months. They aren't being defeated by superior tactics or a better soldier. They are being buried alive by an equation. They are being crushed by a nation that, in the middle of a total global war, has not seen a single dip in its civilian standard of living. A nation that can build a 10,000-ton cargo ship in 4 days. A captured German general, a professional aristocratic soldier, is taken to a captured American supply depot. He is prepared to analyze their weapons, their fuel dumps, their ammunition stores. Instead, he stares dumbfounded at a mountain of crates of lipstick, crates of chewing gum, crates of Coca-Cola, and a warehouse full of refrigerated ice cream mix. He doesn't just see supplies. He sees his own defeat. He realizes in that moment that you cannot win a war against a factory that considers this to be essential material. This is the psychological weapon. You, the captured soldier, are finally given your dessert, a scoop of ice cream. You taste it, and you finally understand. You're not fighting men. You are fighting a system that has so mastered the material world that it can afford to ship nostalgia. A system that can project its softest, most trivial comforts into the very teeth of the war you are trying to wage. The American softness wasn't a liability. It was the weapon. It was the proof. While your government was feeding you methamphetamines and lies, their government was shipping them ice cream. Your fight is over. And so, you stand at the end of the chain, looking back. You've seen the miracle in the foxhole, the absurdity in the sky, and the floating factories in the ocean. You've witnessed the psychological shattering of an enemy who was defeated not just by bullets, but by butter pecan. Who did this? Who were the architects of this strange, soft, and devastatingly effective form of warfare? You see, they were never the ones who made the headlines. Their names were not given to tanks or battleships. They were the invisible ones. You see a man in spectacles, a quartermaster captain, hunched over a clipboard in a freezing tent in Bastogne. He's not fighting. He is calculating. He is balancing the tonnage of 105 mm artillery shells against the tonnage of coffee beans and powdered milk. He is the man who read the reports on combat fatigue and, instead of ordering more medals, ordered more freezers. He is a logistician, a bean counter, a master of the mundane. And in his hands, the mundane became a war-winning weapon. You see the young women of the American Red Cross, the donut dollies, who volunteered to leave the safety of home and drive their clubmobiles, simple trucks outfitted with kitchens, right up to the rear areas. You smell the hot, sweet oil of their donut fryers, a smell that cut through the stench of mud and diesel. They served coffee, they played records, and they listened. They were a human connection, a 10-minute island of normalcy that reminded you, the combat soldier, of a world where people just talked. They were an essential part of the system, a human link in the cold chain of morale. You hear the rumble, a constant 24-hour-a-day vibration. It's the Red Ball Express. You see the drivers, almost all of them African-American soldiers, their eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion. They are driving the same roads day and night without headlights to avoid enemy fighters, in trucks that are falling apart from overuse. They are fighting for a nation that forces them to serve in segregated units, a nation that would make them sit in the back of a bus back home. Yet, they are the circulatory system of the entire Allied army. Their trucks carry the gasoline that feeds Patton's tanks. They carry the plasma that saves lives in the field hospitals. And tucked in between the crates of ammunition and K-rations, they carry the Coca-Cola syrup and the cigarettes, and yes, the ice cream. They are the unsung, overworked, and utterly indispensable engine of this entire logistical miracle. These are the unsung architects, the CB who welded a freezer onto a concrete barge, the PX clerk who traded a pack of gum for a smile, the technical officer from Atlanta who scavenged a bottling plant from the ruins of a French town. They didn't just move supplies, they moved hope. They proved that the softness of American culture was not a weakness, but a profound, renewable, and exportable strength. They took the most frivolous, most ephemeral parts of their civilization and turned them into a tool of strategic victory. Their legacy is not carved in stone. It is written on the faded manifests, in the ledgers of the Quartermaster Corps, and in the diaries of the men who tasted a scoop of vanilla in the middle of a war zone and remembered, for a moment, what it was they were fighting for. The guns, you realize, are only one part of the story. The war of the front line is the one we see in the films, but beneath it, holding it all up, is this other, deeper war. A war of systems, of spreadsheets, of steam turbines and sugar quotas. A war fought and won by the men and women who understood the most invisible and most powerful of all military truths. An army like a man does not just march on its stomach, it marches on its heart. This war of systems did not end in 1945. It continues today in the quiet hum of a server farm, the intricate dance of a global shipping network, and the invisible protocols that power our world. The grand cinematic battles of history are fascinating, but it is the invisible, underlying logistics, the code, the contracts, the supply chains, that truly shape human destiny. The story of the invisible front is the story of our world. It's a reminder that the most powerful forces are often the ones we never see, until we finally, in a moment of clarity, pull back the curtain.